Hello, this is Garrett Thomas, and this is Tiny Plunger. I'm here with John Armstrong and Matthew Beach, and we're here to talk to you about what else but a tiny plunger. It's quite an interesting thing at first when you see it. It's just cute. But trust me, the more and more you play with this, the more you'll realize that this is awesome, and people just love this. The cuteness factor is there, gets their attention, draws them in, and then instantly it just becomes, but how? But you know, it's just not possible. Over and over, they just look at you, and and the story, because it's something that is easy to tell. It's a tiny plunger, and they have this thing, and they request it over and over. Oh, do the thing with the plunger. Do the thing with the plunger. I've been having fun with this for the last I don't know, a couple months. We've been playing with this, and it's very quickly becoming something that is a go-to thing for my bar and restaurant magic. How do you guys use this effect in your working life?
Well, I first found this actually at a comic book convention, and they were selling this kind of a thing as it was a Super Mario Brothers type toy, and also, you know, it was meant to be an iPhone stand, but they were selling it as like the Super Mario Brothers related thing, and there was Super Mario Brothers things related to it, and I just started playing with this, and with different ideas and things I came up with, and I was brainstorming with other guys to come up with bits for it. But it is amazing how women especially love this thing. I have people who have started their own little tiny plunger hashtags on Twitter, and their own little fan sites. And then there's friends who see my show. I have a theater show that I do in LA, and as soon as this comes out, they're like, "Yay, tiny plunger!" and they're just excited about it. Like they get like overjoyed that this is coming out, and it's amazing because the kind of magic that I've been doing with this is the kind of stuff that can get boring. It's involving counting and, you know, and card locations and things like that. But this really sort of makes it a much more interesting presentation.
Yeah, make sure I get that hashtag. I want to be a part of that.
Hashtag tiny plunger.
Yeah, that's gonna be great.
Hashtag
now, before even the plunger, this effect was something that Matthew you played with, and he did it with a pen, and we have that on the video for you. But the evolution of that to this plunger, what do you think about this now? Because what was one of your concerns that you had at first that now we've solved?
My concern was using a pen. First, I was using a pen, so when I saw John's routine, I think I would not use and change my routine because I had something that was really similar. My concern was that the cool part of the pen trick is that I can do something they can't do. And with the plunger, even if they cannot select how many cards they will pick, they can still place a few cards on the mat and pick the amount of cards that are on the mat. So that's this effect that was lost using the plunger at the beginning and I added it in my pen trick, but we solve it.
Yes.
And that's a concern for you, but to me, I put all the magic endowment in the plunger itself. So this became an item that was doing things. So when it was able to then, because at the end of my routine is the spectator actually picking up the plunger and cutting to the card, or sucking it through because there's two kind of possible endings to it. They're doing this, so I'm saying, you know, it's not me, it's the plunger, and so that was always the way that I approached it. So even though that is a valid concern, my approach to this wasn't that I could do anything, is that this could do it.
Because it was a presentation. Because
Right.
in my presentation, the first thing I wanted is using the same presentation as in my trick with the pen, using the plunger, and that is not possible.
Exactly.
And I love this because it just goes to show that what can be something that doesn't work in one effect, if you just change something else, you can make it work. That there is no, you know, there are rules we make. You never say that this is a perfectly normal deck of cards. Well, sometimes there's a time to say that. If you understand the rules and if you understand why there's a problem with it, you can figure out how to break it. And so what we've done here is we have many different ways to use this tool that you could choose what's going to fit you best, because we all approached it slightly differently. And I came on later just to help out because I really loved this, and I was excited to see what you guys were doing with this. So I'm kind of tagging along. But we all have slightly different ways to present this, where you can make it so you can do it, they can't, we all can do it, and it's the plunger, or maybe I can do it because of magnetism, or that this has a personality in and of itself, and we should all hail and bow to the tiny plunger.
All hail the tiny plunger.
All hail the tiny plunger. So let's take a look at what we have in store for you. There's a lot ahead, so sit back and relax and enjoy Tiny Plunger.
All right, here we go. Yeah, this is here.
I could have used one of those today.
Oh, really? Yeah, I bring this with me wherever I go, because you never know.
I think it must have been much bigger.
Yeah, because yeah, it's a tiny plunger. It's a suction cup. See, here's. All right, this is pretty neat. Watch this. Check this out. Thank you.
Very nice.
Come on, that's the best bit in the whole show. Very good. No, come on. This is a vacuum. It
Do you sell
picks
those?
it up. I do. This picks them up. See, like this. That's pretty neat, right? And also, it's a vacuum, so it stops here. So you can't do this. You can't actually pick up other cards with it because the vacuum stops and you can't go through that barrier, right? That makes sense, right? But you can. You just have to rev up the plunger. Seriously, no one laughs at dick jokes in this town? I'm amazed at that. That is insane to me that no one seems to laugh at that joke. Yeah, okay, but watch. See, look.
Don't worry, we will laugh at all the funny jokes.
Wow.
See how it works? See, look, it still picks them up. I'll add another one. Think that's better than that? Okay. Here, check out the cards. Make sure they are what I say they are. Pieces of paper, thin layer of plastic. No, pick them up, sir. Pick it up. And make sure there's nothing on it like it feels sticky or glue-like or whatnot.
No?
Okay? And then check out the plunger. Make sure it's a perfectly ordinary plunger, not like one you would find in any Barbie dream home.
Magnet in there somewhere?
Yes. Okay, perfectly ordinary plunger. But here, watch this. Check this out. It's pretty novel. No? Okay. All right. Here, I'll add some more. Here's some more of them. Look, I love this. Watch.
That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, like that's a lot of cards. You can't. What do you guys want? Blood? This is awesome. This is.
We're just
all right.
amazed.
Watch.
No way.
Ah.
Okay, then I get the clap.
All right. Now, this is not just any plunger. This is an educated plunger. He is learned. He understands things.
It separates him from us.
No, I'll show you what I'm talking about. Name a number from 1 to 10.
7.
7, okay? And so the plunger hears you say 7. He understands that. So when you pick up the plunger, this time as opposed to picking up all of the cards, he will just pick up the cards he needs to count to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right, does that make sense? Because he's educated, he's learned. Do we not go through this? But here's the interesting part. Give me a number between, let's make it higher, 10 and 20.
14.
14, okay. Hold out your hands for me. And here's what we'll do. I'll take the cards, put them right here in front of you. And again, I didn't shuffle them or anything. And I take the cards, and then this time he'll lift up the amount of cards he needs to count to 14. Count them out loud to the table, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13,
14. It's a tiny plunger. Now, he doesn't just understand card quantity.
seen.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, right? He doesn't just understand card quantity, he understands card identity, the difference between, say, one card and another card. Right? So, make it interesting. Would you be so kind as to touch a card, please?
Maybe you're the...
You may take it out. And go ahead and grab the card and show it around to everybody. I won't look. Everybody got it?
Yep.
Excellent. All right. And now, if you wouldn't mind, just go ahead and take the card and just place it back here inside the deck, wherever you'd like. So right back here, yeah?
Yeah.
Is that fair?
That's fair.
All right, we'll give the cards a bit of a mix. Here's the idea. The plunger will now memorize the entire deck of cards. He has done so. Please whisper the name of your card to the tiny plunger.
Can I pick them up?
Yes, please. Perfect. Excellent. The plunger now knows your card.
Yes.
And he knows the location of every single card in the deck.
Okay.
Because of that, he'll be able to do this and go right to it. See? There's a tiny plunger. We'll try it this way, sir. Touch a card out for me. That one there. Good. Take the card. Show it around to everybody. Make sure one gets a good look at it. Did everybody see the card?
Yeah.
What was that?
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. The plunger. He said it was a two of spades. Don't show the card to the plunger because then he'll know it. You can't do that. Yeah. Instead, here. Would you hide the plunger so he can't see anything? I'm sorry. I should have made that clear. And so, if you wouldn't mind, we'll get you a new one. Just reach in there for me and pick one out. Show it around, everybody. Got it? Did everybody see the card? Yes?
Yeah.
And just like last time, you take the card and place it back inside there. But unlike last time, remember I held the cards in my hand. And then I shuffled the cards, which might make you think that I do something to the cards.
Right.
But I do nothing. The tiny plunger does all of this, though I am his
Brilliant
manager. So close the cards up for me, and then shuffle the cards. Make this as fair as possible. Excellent. And you may release the plunger from his bonds. Thank you very much. Though I'm sure he enjoyed that.
Oh, so did I.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. All right. Thank you much, sir. You can put the cards back down there. And go ahead and just give them a cut. We'll make sure this is fair. I don't want to let you be the last person to touch them, and then close the cards up. There you go. Square them up. Take the plunger. And now this time, unlike last time where she mentioned the card or told the card to the plunger, this time he's just going to go into your mind, read your mind, and remove the card. Concentrate. He has done so. The card is now gone. It's been removed from your mind. Please take the plunger, sir, and push it down on top of the deck of cards. You'll notice that this time when you lift up, it only lifts up one card. Your card, sir, the 8 of spades. Hi everybody, welcome to the Tiny Plunger, and thank you very much for buying this. This is actually sort of my presentation of this, and because I've always wanted to do a guess your weight type routine, you know, the type of thing where you would cut a number of cards and know exactly how many it was, or someone would name a number and you'd be able to cut that exact number of cards. And most routines of that nature are always sort of like, you know, gambling themed. And but to me, I just wanted to do something that was kind of cool, and making it about this prop was the way that I found to do that. The prop itself is something I found in a comic book convention, because I actually go to comic book conventions a lot, mostly because I actually work in a comic called Smoke and Mirrors, which you may or may not have heard of. But this was a find I found at a Super Mario Brothers fan table, and bought it, and I thought this was really, really cool. So let me show you the full routine, everything you're going to need for the routine. I'll give you some ideas and some tips to be able to do the routine the way that I'm doing it, that you saw in the demonstration, and other ways you can do it depending on your own style. So let's go right to it. All right, so let's talk about what you're going to need to be able to do this particular routine. Well, first you're going to need the little tiny plunger. It's what you got in your kit. It's pretty cool. It's just a suction cup with a dowel rod. There's no gimmick to it other than the fact that it is a tiny plunger, so it's a very interesting, odd little device. The deck of cards that you'll need for my routine, just my routine, if you want to do that one gag, the gag in which I spread the cards out, they pick a card, and the plunger sees the card. You will need a marked deck of cards. The marked deck of cards I'm using here is the Boris Wild marked deck, but any mark where you can actually read the corners, like Garrett's speed reader deck, all those work. The idea, of course, is you just have to be able to read from the sides when they pick out the card. If you don't want to do that gag, you don't have to do that gag, so you can just use a normal deck. But if you want to do that gag, you would need a marked deck. And then the last thing you're going to need to do is to put a breather crimp into one of the cards. I also recommend, even though the breather crimp itself is kind of a indication, that you would probably put a little bit of either a dot or pencil dot. But because this is a marked deck, I know what this card is because the actual mark itself, that way it's marked already. But I would always sort of pencil dot it so you know exactly where you are, and it helps. For the breather crimp, let me talk to you a little bit about the breather crimp itself. The breather, the way to put this on is basically by drawing an X down from this point. You go from here, 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 and here. And how you do that is with your thumb, 2 fingers like so. Thumb goes underneath like that. So in that position. Fingers on the other side like this, and it kind of pulls down like so. And same way, like so. And again. And again. So that actually creates the X like so. Now this is called an up breather, and because it is going to be the last card here, meaning that when you actually cut the deck using the little plunger, it will always be on that side. If you did it the opposite way, if you actually press down this way, it would be on that side when you actually cut. But I always keep it so that it's here because it fits the routine. So that's what you're going to do. You put, again, your thumb and 2 fingers across, and you drag it that way, and you drag it that way, and you drag it that way, and you do that way, and that puts a good, strong breather into the card. And now you're ready to go. That's pretty much all the setup you need, but just one other thing about the breather. I have been researching some stuff about the breather, and the breather itself, this is usually the way that it is placed in. This was in the breather booklets that were in the Bob King things. This is what Vernon talked about. But there's other ideas as far as crimp stuff works, like the Infinity Crimp of Martin Nash's. And of course, there's some of the crimp stuff that we were talked about by Garrett as well as Matthew. But it was mentioned briefly in Pitt Hardling's book, but there's a way to put a crimp in very, very quickly. And it's also, as far as in my research I can tell, goes back to actually the way that gamblers really did indeed put the crimp back, according to what Steve Forty tells me. So this is how to put a breather crimp in very, very quickly. So let's say you're going to do a trick, and then you get a card, and you find the selected card, and you can actually put the breather crimp in right as you then reveal the card. And believe it or not, that is now breather crimped. Okay, so what I'm doing is I got my thumb and 2 fingers on either side, and I'm just pressing down basically simultaneously at the same time, like that, on each of the corners. So I do one corner, dink, second corner, dink, and I can do that in the guise of I don't know if this is actually your card, but it is your card, the 5 of diamonds. And now I've actually put the breather in right there in front of their eyes. And now, 5 of diamonds, remember that. I put that in the deck. 5 of diamonds. So it's a very, very quick and easy way to put a breather crimp in. That way you can actually borrow a deck, put the crimp in, and then do the trick. And people will be like, how the heck did that work? It's also, that whole thing is good with the normal breather crimp, because if you're in a heavy, heavy, heavy humidity state like Florida, because boy, I grew up in Florida, and you know, by the end of the day, a deck of cards would look something like this. You want a really, really strong breather to make sure this is going to work. So you probably would do this, purposely made breather. But if you're worried about it kind of corroding or wearing out over time, if you just do this, to the already existing breather, you have now re-strengthened the breather and it's ready to go in for whatever routine that you're going to do. So that's pretty much all you need, and we'll get right now into the full work of it. All right, so we have, we'll start with the full routine and where you are, and we'll try to break this down into little segments so you can see how this actually works. But as overall, just going to go through this fairly briskly, at least the first part. The first part is obviously talking about the plunger and saying what this is. And I make the gag about that I bring this with me wherever I go because you never know. And I think that's hilarious. And so I put that out, and then here's the deck. And the deck is all set with the breather crimp on the bottom of the deck. The bottom of the deck. Now I'm going to go into the first part, which essentially is a lot of the stuff that Matthew does with the pin. So I explain that a vacuum is created when you pick something up like this, and that is why it picks it up. And I play it as though this is some kind of great magic trick, which obviously it isn't. Because the reality of this situation is, and as much as I've done this routine for laymen, is that there are sometimes you perform for really smart people. And when you perform for really smart people, they know that this is not a trick. They know that's not a trick because they know how surface tension and that sort of the reason why this actually sticks together, why that works. So I try not to play this as like a super, super heavy trick. I play it like, look how neat this is. And that, to me, I think kind of saves any sin you might have by having really smart people who understand surface tension and the way things would react. But for the, shall we say, the normal masses who might not understand that, I'm able to then throw out some bad science and then let good science do the method for me, which is actually how this works. So I say, watch, I'll show you something amazing. Thank you very much. No, seriously, that's incredible. It's science. It's incredible. When I go like this, it's a vacuum. The vacuum actually picks up this card, and it seals that off. And now, as you can see, this card, it can't pick up both cards. The plunger can only pick up one card because of the vacuum ends here, which is true, but it's not the real reason why you can't pick up this card. You can't pick up this card because the card itself is now naturally bent when you do that. It kind of makes a little curve on it. So it doesn't allow me to pick up enough of this surface area to use surface tension to pick it up, right? Because if I push down, it picks it up. But if I just do this, it won't pick it up. Right? So I show and explain some bad science, and then let good science actually do the method for me. So now, after explaining that this doesn't actually pick this up, I grab this and go, but you you just have to rev up the plunger. And I put them both together, and then I do this little gag, and then come over here and pick up the two. And because it's only two, especially if you're in an area where there'd be a lot more static electricity than not, and that just sort of depends on like heaters and other things around your house, you can get some serious hang time on that. Eventually it will fall. Eventually that's going to fall off. But you can get some pretty good hang time. So I always let that stay a little longer than when I do it later on when you have more weight, which you won't get as much good hang time from. So there you go. So now I add a couple more, and I just add and then pick up, add and then pick up. And I'm just demonstrating how awesome the plunger is. The plunger is doing all this. It's really not me. Then I think it's important that you have the cards inspected. So you have them actually take a look at the cards and make sure that they don't have anything sticky on them or anything that feels like a magnet. And then I have the plunger inspected. What they're looking for, I have no idea, but I have it looked at. And then I will either pick up all of these like that, or for the first time, show that you don't have to pick them up all together at once. You can do this, and that picks them all up. And that's really cool. Because at that point, they've already thought, well, he can only pick them up if he pushes down and lift up. Here now, it looks like I just can pick them up totally at random. So that's nice. Now I add some extra weight to it and pick it up. And I like to do this. I like to pick up, especially when I get the bulks that if I pick up now and just let go, they will fall eventually, you can see. But look at the hang time. That's a pretty good hang time. So I always like to do this and put it into my hand so that I'm actually going into some sort of transit, or put it on top of the deck. And then about half the deck, which this is where a layman would go, really? How's that? Would you be able to do that? And pick them up. And now I'm going to pick up the whole deck. And a couple ways you can do this. One is you can make sure that your breather is a little weaker if you feel confident that it's going to pick up anyway. And then now it'll pick up all the cards together, including the breather. But now because the breather is really strong, and you can watch, it'll only pick up 51 cards and leaving the breather behind, because that's what we made it for anyway. So to make sure that doesn't happen, I come underneath and I cop this card off. It's really easy to get that break because it's a breather, so it's easy to pull that down and get the break. So I get a break above it, and then just Gambler's cop that card down. There's no card in play, there's no chosen card around, so there's really nothing that anyone's actually looking for. And then I cop this, place it back, and then onto the deck back onto the table, and then pick this up, and it works just fine. And then as I pick this back up, I just add the card to it. So it's very, very easy and not that hard at all. And so now you're at that point, and you're ready to then go into the next phase of the routine. All right, so now we're going to go into the number phases, the guess your weight, direct cut type phases, and they are pretty simple actually to do. All it involves is being able to count and move those cards from the bottom to the top of the deck. This is all done in offbeat, so I've just picked up all the cards with the plunger, and people thought that was really great. And if you remember correctly, I had to cop and then put the cards back in my hand. So the cards are already in my hand, and everything is all set. So now I'm going to spread through the cards and look at the bottom of cards, and I'm going to set up basically for the 7 force, for lack of a better term. The most common number between 1 and 10 when called for is 7. Name a number from 1 to 10, and you can put pressure on them. They are more than likely to say 7. Banachek has this in Psychological Secrets. It's been talked about a lot. But this is just the 7 force, and that's what I'm going for. You don't have to hit it, and you'll see that in a second, but that's the one I'm going to go for. So with the displacement, I'm going to, this is the breather, and I need to get the breather so that it is the 8th card, so 7 cards above the breather. So the easiest way to do that, and the way that I do every time, is just counting over 4 from the bottom, another 4 from the bottom, and then just immediately placing them back on top. I don't hold a break or anything like that. I'll double undercut. I just spread, I count 4, place those on top. So now we have 7 cards on top of the breather ready to go. So now I put the deck down, but as I do it, I hold it like this. So I don't put it on the table and release. I put it down and I hold it like this. And the reason why is that if they say 7, I can say, look, I kept the deck on the table, I didn't do anything, I didn't cut, I didn't shuffle, but you said 7, and now he's going to cut 7. Okay? That's what I'm able to do. But if they say 6 or 8 or 4 or 9 or some other number, then I am then able to immediately then pick up the cards and go, because I am still holding on to the cards, and then do the adjustment that I need to make. If I was to let go of the cards completely and then pick it back up again, that would look weird. Here, at least, I'm in some contact with the cards. So I have the best of both worlds from this position. So as I come back and I let's say he says 7, so 7, I'm clean, and he's going to lift up, boom, and then we'll count, and it's going to be 7, and it's a miracle. If, let's say, they said 6, what I normally do is, because again I have the deck in my hand like this, I go, okay, so you said 6, and I just slip cut 1 card underneath the crimp. So now there's 6 above the crimp, and I go into it. And I do that in a sort of an offbeat type way. So it would just be here, and then place it back down. My goal really is to avoid having to ever shuffle the cards. I don't want to shuffle the cards if I don't need to. because I think they remember the shuffles. One little cut like this is usually not noticed in any way. If there is, if 8, let's say, is the number, then I then go something to the nature of, now remember now, he was able to pick up a number of cards, but you said, what was the number? 8? Okay, so now there's 8 there. I just displaced 1 card. You can also do the exact same thing if you wanted to shuffle. I could do something like this, where I would have a break underneath the card, lift up, and then just place the deck down like that. All those things work to get 1 extra card or 2 extra cards or whatever to it. But also, you can indeed shuffle if you wanted to by just adding 2 like that, and now we would be set for 9. So if you add, the way to do that again is just to add 2. You could jog, shuffle off, cut to the jog, and then now I have the number of cards I need, in this case 9 above the thing. If they go for lower numbers like 2 or 3, I encourage them to choose another number. Oh, that's easy. Go for a higher number. Because I just don't even want to deal with that, because it's not that impressive when it lifts up just 2 cards. It doesn't seem like, for some reason, it seems like that could happen. But like 6 or 5, all you have to do is, then a 5 would always be 2 slip cuts. Basically, you're just adjusting yourself so that you have whatever number that they've said above the breather. So we'll go with 7 in this case. So 7. And now they count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, actually 8, because I forgot about the displacement. So there's 8. So we'll go with an 8 with this case. So here's 8. Now all I have to do is I pick back the deck up. The breather is again still on top, and I displace from the bottom to the top the number of cards that I need to make this add up to 15. Okay. So if there's 8 here, then 7 is what I'm going to pick up from here. So in this case, this is 8, so I need 7 cards, or 3 and 4, and once again displace those back onto the top, pick this up, and do that. So now I'm ready for 15. To make the routine go higher in sort of a more interesting next phase kind of thing, to keep building interest, is now I do it into their hands. So I have them hold their hands out like this. I have the 15 here. I'm still holding on to the deck. And I say, now you, sir, name a number between 10 and 20. And he's going to say 13. And the reason why I use 15 is just an easy number for me to be able to do any displacement that I need. So he says 13, and then once again 2 slip cuts, and I'm there. If he says 15, I'm good to go. If he says 16, shuffle 1 more, and then whatever you need to do to get that extra card on top of the breather. Put that down, have them hold out their hands, and then do that, and then have them count the cards. So if they count the cards, and as they count the cards out here, then my breather once again is still on top. And all I have to do after they count is pick up these cards, place them underneath the breather, and now I'm ready to go into the third chunk of the routine. Now what I'm going to do, we have the crimped card on top. We're going to go ahead and go into the selected card phases. So I have the deck spread out like this, and the person who's sitting on this side, or the person who's on this side anyway, I have them select a card. And it's a free choice. They really can pick any card they want. So they pick this card. And if they, for some reason, decide to pick the top card, then you just skip right to the end. But majority of the time, all the time, they pick that whatever card other than the top card, which is crimped. And they look at this card. And I make it very obvious that in the routine, then I come over and then I move the plunger, and then I hide and I say, go ahead and show everybody the card. And I don't make I don't say I'm going to hide the plunger. I just take it and I put it over here and go ahead and show everybody the card. This just sets me up for the gag later, but I do that, and so now they look at the card. And I pick up the deck, and in that action, I'm going to cull this card so that it is underneath the selection. To do that, it's pretty easy. Slip cut so that the 8 of spades is just a few cards from the top. And now I come over and I cull that card. I'm just using this half scissors spread cull. Thumb here on top, walk that card out like that. Thumb here on top. And I walk that card out like that. A lot of great places to look up this half scissors spread cull. And this just rides along the spread. So this is the view from underneath. It's the view from underneath, and it's just riding along the spread. And then now when they decide they want to put the card back in a certain location, you put the card back in. When as you put it back in, you're putting it back in so that the cold card goes underneath the chosen card. Okay, so that is placed back inside, and now I'll put the deck down and I will do a false shuffle. And this is just a 0 shuffle. You don't even have to do a false shuffle if you didn't want to, but I always kind of false shuffle the cards to mix them around. And what's nice is that, especially if they place it back towards the center, you can do a legitimate small packet cut because it doesn't hurt anything and actually does help you because then you have less cards to actually pick up with the plunger. So I do this gag in which I say the plunger is going to memorize all of the cards, and he does. And then I give the plunger to the person. I say, whisper the name of the card to the tiny plunger, and they do, which is a funny gag. And then I come back over here, and I'm going to do this. The crimped card is here, which means the selected card is there, and I have this really great display. So perfect applause is position, you're ready to go. Now I put, once again, all of that underneath the crimp and move, choreography-wise, I move the plunger to the side. Spread these out the same way that I just spread it out for her. And to him, because usually there's a gentleman on this side, I'll explain why that's important in a second. And I say go ahead and select one of these cards, and they do, and because the deck is marked, when they select that card, I then know what it is. I make this big deal about not looking at the card, because I want everyone to remember that I'm not looking at the card. And then I say, did everybody see the card? And they say yes, and then I go, huh? What did you say? Oh, that's a 10 of hearts? And then turn it over, and I get that gag. And then I go, no, don't show him, because if you show him, that ruins the trick. And then I have her hold the plunger like that. Okay, so that happens. And you don't have to do this that way. If this was a normal deck and there was no mark and you didn't see the thing, you could do the exact same kind of gag. You just wouldn't be able to know what the card was. And you would go like this, and they would pull out a card, let's say that card, and they show it around, and then you go, huh, what was that? Oh, he says he saw the card. I'm sorry. You know, could you please hold it like that? And that's all you'd have to do. So you either can have them, you either name the card, and it's kind of funny as a little sort of like gag slash revelation trick, or just do straight on gag. But either one sets up for what the psychology, I think, of the next bit. So they hide the plunger, and then I come over here, and it gives me an excuse to pick up and change the way that I have this next card selected. As though I'm just trying to hurry up because this was a mistake, I then classic force this card. Here's the card. I run a few cards off, and I keep a break underneath those cards, keeping the break, and then I classic force the card. And there's many, many, many treaties on this, but yes, the classic force is what I am doing here. And then I immediately spread the cards out again, because I want people to remember that this is how he selected a card. I want them to think that he took the card out like he did the first time, and that's how he always selected the card. So, because if you think about it, the way to make both selections uniform would have them both be selected in the I hold the cards in my hand way. But this was just my attempt to actually see if I could find a way to do a very much a hands-off, you pick any card you want type of selection, and then make the classic force seem the exact same way, at least in their memories. And I think I've at least accomplished a little bit of that here. So now they have the forced card, which is indeed the crimp. And then I go into this thing about saying, hey, last time I held the cards, last time I shuffled the cards, you might think I'm doing something, but I won't do that this time. You put the card inside, you close the cards up, you shuffle the cards, and they do. So they're the ones shuffling the cards. They're the ones doing all of this. It's completely hands-off. And it feels really good that way. I feel that you don't have anything you have to do with this. And so now they select, I have them cut the cards, and there's an excellent chance that when they cut the cards, they will cut to the crimp and bring the crimp card on top. And then I go back and do one of the two versions of how this trick ends. Now, always I do the gag about sticking it on their head and removing their thought. That is, and I always do that to a male because you can't do that to a woman and seem anything other than a jerk. You just can't. It just seems very weird and oddly just inappropriate. So don't do that to a woman. But to a guy, trust me, I know, don't do this to a woman. To a guy, it's funny. And I always try to get the person here to have either a receding hairline and or just bald. Because it's even funnier to do it to a bald person and I can just stick it on the top of their head. It's funny stuff. So then I take this and it's on top, I've just removed it from their head, and I go, I want you to take this and place it onto the deck, and now lift up, and when they lift up, they will only be able to lift up the top card, and I go, that's right, your card was actually sucked through the rest of the cards, your card, and I have them show it, the 8 of spades, and it has those come through the deck. All right, that is one of the two ways this trick can end. The other way is that, again, completely fair, when they cut the cards, they don't cut to the breather crimp. Which is fine, because they're going to now do the trick that you've been doing for the people earlier. They're going to do it, and they're going to do it the first time. So you can feel confident that you'll be able to do this, because pretty much I have spectators who've never seen this before, have no idea about magic, end this trick for me every time. And so what the idea is, I have them go bonk, bonk. I have them go hit, and then go immediately over to the side. And that's what I tell them. I say go, eh. And basically what they're doing is they're cutting the deck for you, and they're going to cut to the crimp because of the breather. And it's impossible for them not to cut to the, if the crimp is good, it's impossible for them not to cut to that crimp. The only problem would be if the card was on the direct bottom of the deck. It would seem very odd that way. And so when I have them cut the cards, I can kind of tell either by lifting or adjusting, but I very rarely do that. So now I'm here, set, go ahead and go bonk, bonk, and they do. And I go, isn't that amazing? Cut through this card, build up, build up, build up, turn over, and then there is indeed the card. And then that's just pretty much it. That clears up everything, and I'm ready then to go into whatever else I'm going to do. But that's essentially the routine that I do with Tiny Plunger. All right, so that's pretty much the routine. I just want to hit a couple real quick high points to make sure that you understand that it's really about the sort of the adventure of the little plunger, at least in the way that I perform this. But I encourage you to come up with some ideas and things that you would want to do to either personify the plunger or even make it as though you're actually making the plunger get powers or release powers, whatever. Some of the cool things that we've talked about in other parts of this disc, you can add to this routine. You can use maybe that ventilated card instead of the breather, and there's other really interesting stuff there, so definitely do that. So mixing and matching between some of the routines and coming up with some of your own ideas, I think will be really great. So that's pretty much it. I've been doing this for a while. It's been one of my favorite things I do with Magic Castle, and I think you're going to enjoy it as well.
Okay, shuffle the cards. And I have my little French plunger. It's French. And I'm going to teach you how to use a plunger. You used one already, once in your life?
I might have, yeah.
Okay. I only use plunger with cards. Okay? Because I'm a magician. So, you take the plunger, place it on top, a line like that, okay? You press the plunger lift, and the card will stick to the plunger. Not too many times, just a couple of seconds, but you will be able to lift it. I show you. Like that. You see? Okay, try. Now you have the sound. The sound is cool. See? But it doesn't stick. Okay, let's try. I'm going to help you for that. Let's try with less cards. Less card. Less card, it's easier. Okay? So, take the plunger, you concentrate, you imagine the cards sticking really hard to the plunger. Okay? And you just, like that. Okay, do it. In the center, yep. Yeah. Now. Okay, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you. I help you with less cards. That's not even half of a deck, huh? That should be easier. That's easier. Center, concentrate, and you lift like that. Okay? That's a picking action. Yeah. I help you. It's going to be difficult for me to help you because there is almost no more cards. I help you, and let's get rid of half of the cards. Shuffle those cards. Okay. Center. Okay. Concentrate. Keep concentrate on the cards. See? Go on. Concentrate. Concentrate. Yes. 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 Yeah. No. Okay. No. Okay. I help you. This one you can do it. I mean, that's a beginner version. My daughter, 4-year-old, she's doing it. Concentrate. Go on, go on. Okay. I don't know what to say. If you have a problem with a plunger, you call me. For all those tricks, you will need to use a mat because it's based on the vacuum principle. If you are not using a mat, that will not work. So, plunger, pen, anything you will do in that DVD, you will need a mat or a tablecloth or something that can put air in between the card and the table. This little plunger is amazing. It has been specially made to be able to suck or not suck when you want. I created that working on the plunger. On the prototype, I've done a hole that goes from inside to almost on the top of the plunger. You cannot see because it's inside the handle, but there is a hole, a 1 millimeter diameter hole that goes almost to the top. Now I've made 2 holes, one there and one there, so lower here and higher there, and these 2 holes connect with the inside hole. So there is air going through inside the plastic through those 2 holes. Now those 2 holes are aligned, and I made like this. I sandpaper the handle to have these 2 flat parts in order to have my 2 holes on the sides and those flat parts here. So flat part, and 2 holes. Okay, that's the round part, so I have a hole in front, hole behind, and the 2 flat parts there. And I made the flat parts because when you have that handle in the hand, you will naturally place your fingers on the flat side. And I've done that to make sure that the audience will never place their fingers on the holes. Also, there is one hole slightly higher than the other. So when you place your finger on it to create the suction, you have to place your thumb on the bottom one, and your thumb on the top one, and your first finger on the bottom one, and press really hard. That way, you will have the suction. And basically that's it. You can lift a card, and if you release the pressure, you can also control the suction. And when you push without placing your fingers in the hole, you can see the airflow. You can hear the airflow. So, that said, when I want the plunger to suck, I squeeze really hard, push, lift, I release it, and if my spectator is in front of me, to help him take the plunger in the position I want, I will grab again the plunger and say, look, it's easy, and I will rotate it from a quarter. And now he has a flat side, so he will grab it like this, and that will not suck. If my spectator is on my side, like we have during the demo, I will not move the orientation of the plunger because he will grab it naturally from the flat side because he was on my right. It would be the same if he was on my left. You can do that with cards. So you can suck all the cards because of the vacuum principle. And less cards you have, more time you can have this levitation effect. It's a little same principle. It's just little the same as with the pen. And less card. And it's really fun to perform because you are challenging the spectator. And at the end, it looks like a joke. Also, you can if you release the pressure, you can unstick the card at your command. And they will try it, and they will not figure out how it's done. And you could do it with a cell phone or anything that could be stuck with a plunger, anything flat, and that's really fun. And I hope you will enjoy it and have fun with your audience. So, working on the session principle and on the plunger theme, I created a card that was impossible to be sucked. So that's a real plunger. And this card will not work. The cool idea with that is any amount of cards, you place that card on top, and you will not be able to lift the cards. So the way it works is that I created kind of a channel for the hair that can go from the back to the face. So it works like that. The card is a single card, but there is extra pieces on the face, and I took a quote card to be able to add this little part, and that's almost invisible. But every other part of the card is just a single card. So you need this little piece from a queen. If you can use the same queen or another queen, it's not important. What you have to do on the back of the card is using an X-Acto knife to make cuts in the center part. So let me show you one card that has only the cuts to make the hair goes from one side to the other. And on the face, on the little extra piece, I've done some cuts. These are lines on one side and on the other. You don't want to go through the complete piece because you will cut your piece in two. So every line I stop and do another line on the side. And I have like 10, 20 lines. The idea is to create, that those cuts are in contact with the cuts on the back, those, to make the hair goes from the back to the face. And I've glued that piece just using glue on the border, because if you glue everywhere, you will fill out the cuts and the hair will not go through. But if you place glue just around this little piece, the hair will be able to go through. So now this card cannot be sucked. So you can remove it to be able to make the effect, or if you palm it, you can add it. Now it looks like the real plunger is not working anymore. An extra effect just using that funny card. Also, if you use it on a table and you are not using a mat, if you use a regular card, a regular plunger, and a table without a mat, you will have difficulties to lift the card because it will stick to the table. With that card, it will be easy to remove the plunger and the card will not stick to the plunger. So that's a special air flow card vacuum plunger thing. A cool idea you can use for a climax of your effect is to having a glued deck with a glued plunger on it. So everything is glued together. You use crazy glue to glue the plunger, and if you switch a real plunger to this one, now you can pretend to lift everything, and now everything is glued together. I also make the handle removable, so if they try to pull hard, they will not unglue the plunger. You can also have fun using just one card and the plunger glued to one card that can be forced, and at the end you can give them the plunger and the card glued together. It's a fun way to end a trick where you use the plunger. I have a deck of cards. You can check and shuffle the cards, shuffle them and look if all the cards are different. It's a regular deck of cards. Yes? Okay. What I'm going to do, first you can pick a card. Pick a card, any card. You look at it, you remember it. Good. Place it back here. And I'm going to lose the card in the deck. I'm going to need about those cards, maybe a little more. One more. Yeah. Okay. So we'll use those cards. Could you please shuffle those cards? I'm going to be honest with you, and I will tell you a story. When I was younger, I had problem with girls. Not now, not anymore. Before I had problem with girls. I had problem to attract girls, but not now. Not now because at that time I read a book on magnetism, and I became magnetic. So now I'm magnetic. Do you feel any attraction right now? No, don't answer. No, don't answer. To be safe, we are going to use not human beings for the example, but cards. Could you please place a card, any card? Just keep the card and just place one card. Oh, there, okay. I need something to concentrate on. Oh, a pen. You can take back the cards, place it in the deck, yeah, and shuffle again. And let's try with 2 cards. 1, 2. Okay. Yeah. Take back the cards, shuffle again, and let's try with 4 cards. More cards, it's harder for me. So that's why. Take back the cards, and let's try with 6, 7. Okay, let's try with all the cards. Okay, we can try with this pack. Ah, it's not working. You know why? No, because I have a prediction in my pen. You can look at the prediction. It's inside. There is nothing in the pen. Look at it. There is a French sentence and an English sentence. You can read whatever you want. It's the same one.
Look at the top card.
Top. Look at it. Is it your card?
That's my card.
You can try if you want to see if you're magnetic, and you can check everything. Oop.
Can't do it.
Okay, so for that trick you need a regular deck of cards, so a borrowed deck of cards will be even better. You need a regular pen, even if this one is slightly modified. I will show you why. And you need the major gimmick. It's mounting putty. Yellow, white, flesh tone. I use blue because my pen is blue, so that's blue tack. And you need about the size of a rice grain, like that. And that's the only gimmick you need. Now, about the pen, you need, it works with any pen, but it will be easier with a flat tip pen. So you can do it with a random pen, just look at the tip and pick one that has a flat tip pen. If you want to use a dedicated pen and cut the pen like I've done, you can use any pen, and if the tip is not flat, you can flatten the pen using sandpaper. Very thin sandpaper. That's what I've done. So that way you can choose the pen you like. Especially if you use the same pen for other effects, you can switch the pen, and that way you can flatten the tip, even if it's not flat. When you do the effect, people think there is a magnet in the pen. So to avoid that, I cut my pen out so they can look inside. They can hear it's empty. And that's why I cut the pen. And to motivate the fact that my pen is cut, I placed a prediction inside where you can look at the top card, and regarder la carte du dessus. That is, look at the top card in French. Now, I place that inside and there. Now, you have your putty, and you place the putty on the bottom. You don't push too hard. You want to have this little ball shape. And you're ready to go. If you want to store that, you can place the putty on the top. Like this, it will be protected to avoid getting the dust. So that's the storing, and that's performance putty. Now, about the borrowed deck, you need to have a deck with no cream cards. So if they give you a deck that is really old, you will have lots of cards that will not be flat. So what you need to do is looking at the edge and taking all those cards, like 5, 6, the cards that are really not in good shape, and placing them on top. That way, when you will have your cream card on the bottom, their selection will be on top. The first card that will have hair in between the cards will be the cream card. Others after, but because you will not lift the cards that are after the selection, they will not bother you. That's what you really want to check if you do it with a borrowed deck. Now, they shuffle the cards. You're going to, say, give back the cards to you. You ask them to pick a card. They pick a card. As they are looking at the cards, you will crimp the bottom card. Nice crimp. Now, you swing cut the cards, place the selection here, and you're going to place the cream card on top of the selection. And now I'm going to really lose the card, but I fake a control. And from behind, I can see the cream card, so I can track where is the card. And I want the selected card to be in the bottom half, like this. Because I'm going to use the top half of the cards to do the first part of the effect. So I just cut the cards, and when I have my cream card in the bottom half, I cut half of the cards, give that to the spectator, and place those cards with the selection aside. If your table is not flat, because of the hair between the cream card and the selection, the cards can cut like that. So when I place them aside, I slightly fan them on the table. Now they shuffle the cards. I say all my stuff about the magnetic book. By the way, it's not true. I could attract girls when I was younger. And give you one card. I pretend I'm going to magnetize the cards. I take my pen and just put the pen in contact with the card to make it stick to the putty. I don't push too hard, you don't need to, and I'm lifting up. And I'm going to lift this one longer because I want them to remember that moment, because with more cards I will not have as much time to lift the cards. To unstick the pen, you don't lift it because you will have the sound. So I'm going to tilt forward to unstick without sound and ask them to take back the cards. Every time I take back the pen, I rotate the pen and show my hand empty, and I avoid flashing the putty. So that's why I'm placing the pen like that to cover the putty. And I give them back the cards. They shuffle the cards again, because you don't want them to think you're adding glue or something on the card. So they shuffle the card, cut the cards, and now we try with 2 cards. The principle will work because of the vacuum. So when I push on the cards, I can leave the 2 cards during a few seconds, 1 or 2 seconds. That's the principle. The principle will work if the centers of the cards are aligned. If you do it off-center, it will work, but it will be more difficult. So I align the center of the cards, one onto the other. I like when it's a little fanned, but make sure the center of the cards are aligned. So I push on the center slightly, go up and down. And I go up and down before the bottom card can fall. Okay. Now they take back the cards. I try directly with 4 cards. And every time I take back the pen, because I'm pushing on the blue tack, the putty slightly is sliding, and because it's squeezing, it's sliding on the sides. So every time I take back the pen, I'm going to push and squeeze with my little finger around the pen and rotating the pen. That will place back the putty in a little ball shape. And it will avoid going on the sides and avoid the flash. 4 cards, same stuff. Go up and down. Now, they shuffle the cards. You do it with all the cards. More cards, more difficult it is, and that's true because less time you will have when you lift the cards. So to be sure that the cards do not fall down on the table, I will place my hand and move those cards to my hand. If the cards fall down in my hand, the effect is still there. Because the effect was I could lift the cards from here to there. So even if they fall, the effect will be there. So I push harder and go there. Now, place those cards aside. Again, place my hand. And because of the crimp, there is hair between the crimp and the selected cards. So the cards will separate exactly at the selection. So I push into center, lift up the same way I've done it. And now I have the selection on top. So I fan the cards. I use that moment to uncrimp the card. Say, oh, I don't know why it's not working. Now I'm going to open my pen because there is a prediction. If there was no prediction, I will just open the pen and say, oh, the pen looks normal. Check the top card. And I'm using this moment when I open the pen to rub the putty in my palm. I'm rotating and opening the pen. So now I have the putty that sometimes stick to my finger, sometimes stick to my hand. Sometimes it's still a little attached to the bottom of the pen, but the putty is like that. So I use my other fingers to grab it and pull up the pen to unstick it. Then grab the prediction, open it, read, look at the top card. They check the top card, and they can try and they can check everything, and everything is normal aside the small blue tack.
So magic as a performance art requires an artist, and being that there's many artists out there, we all have different ways to approach the same media and or medium, excuse me. And here we have a tool that does one thing. It picks up cards or doesn't pick up cards. Yet we have total different ways to approach it and how to make it relate to an audience. And hopefully you guys will even come up with your own ways to handle this. But I definitely want to talk about things that we've played with. And I want to start with Mathieu. With how did you feel? What did you want to communicate to audiences with the pen trick and with the plunger that you've been playing with?
There are two basic ideas. As usual in my tricks, I like a lot when I do something and people think I'm crazy. That's the first phase. And when I lift the first card and I do that, they really think I'm completely crazy, especially when I do the presentation. When I look, it's really hard, and they don't get it. And that's a phase that you have in lots of my tricks because I like that. After, it's now magical, and the point was for me to be able to do something they cannot do, they cannot reproduce. And at the end, because I get rid of the gimmicks, they can try and they will not be able to do what I have done. So that was mostly the path I wanted.
So it's a little bit more of a challenge, and everyone looks at you like you're crazy.
Yeah, and the presentation is really about a challenge. I can do that. I can do that. I can do even more cards, more difficult. And at the end, I can do it, but you can't.
Well, we look at you like you're crazy too.
Okay.
So. Now you didn't
I think
want
that's
people
mostly
to think
because
you
of
were
the-
crazy, John. You wanted people to share in a different type of experience.
Yeah, it's really about the personification of this object and making it seem as though it's a pet. When you have a pin is a common object. You want it to be like, look, it's a common object, and it's doing this unordinary thing. It's doing something extraordinary. And in this case, this is a very unordinary, weird object. So for me to have that same kind of presentation that Matthew is having, it's not going to work because it's a weird object. So to me, the object itself then has to be sort of the star, and because it's cute, and people just like smaller things in miniature. That's always, people like that. That was where because I always approach it from a point of not necessarily comedy, but entertainment. And always going from making people definitely laugh along with what's going on. The magic has to be serious. It has to have the impact, but I want there to be laughs. I think that's interesting things for me. And I also try to as much as possible remove challenge situations. I'm not a big fan of anything where I can do this and you can't. I just don't like that. So in this case, it's just look at this cool thing, and at the end, even though I keep saying this little guy is what's doing this, the spectator is the one who, in the last phase, gets to actually do the trick, and so because of that, I think it's more inclusive in that way.
Cool. Sure. And when I perform it, I'm closer related to that. I don't want it to even look like I'm the source. That it's me who's doing it, because after they've seen me do sleight of hand and all this stuff, it seems like I'm just showing off. Like, look what I can do, look what I can do, look what I can do, and look what I can do with this plunger, and look what I can do with this coins, and look what I can do with this deck of cards. I wanted it to be look what this plunger can do, and that I really liked with your presentation, and I adapted it into to mine as well. So yeah, definitely. Being a part of the witness, I really like that I was just with them. Check this plunger out. It wasn't something I did, because I played with it where I was like, if I push down just the right amount, I could pick up 5 cards, or if I push down even harder, I could pick up 6 cards. Where it was a skill thing, and they can't do it. They can't do it, and that works too. But it just depends on your personal choices.
And the presentation you want to do on that trick.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Now that we've played with those type of concepts, what are other directions we could take this? We have a couple of ideas here. I see that in just brainstorming about the concept of the plunger. What are things you could do?
Well, let me start with a couple of things that what almost it was designed for. It could be used in Magic, and actually very effectively, which is the fact that it just makes really good stands for cards. The fact that you can actually just put a card up there, or multiple cards like that. You can, instead of using wine glasses, you can use this for Hofzinser type things, and play with that. And if this actually was a Hofzinser card, the card that actually has the light, and you can see the different opposite card in there, that's a perfect way to actually display that with any kind of light source. So all that actually works out very, very well with this. The sticker, the plunger itself actually also works with a card box just fine. So you can then take it and then just use one and still be able to then put up multiple cards and display them for any kind of display things. If you are doing more sort of parlor-esque things, if you set this up for a out-of-this-world-esque type thing that people can see, and then be able to do anything you could actually need that for. So the fact that it's actually just itself a stand is kind of a good thing for us, and it works. Like, it doesn't have to be like a surface like one of these card guards. Regular box works. Anything's fine. Also, then I was playing around a lot with the idea that you could actually take these, and with multiples of these, almost do like matrix type things. We're getting the plungers from one side to the other, having the cards drop, using some of the dice gimmicks, if you're familiar with those dice fall over gimmicks, and being able to play with that. And it might be guiding the lily, it might be a little bit, it's the kind of thing you would see in a competition act. It's the plumber act, but it's at least it's an idea.
Well, someone out there will do it.
Someone might do it. Yeah. And then other things that I thought were actually kind of neat is just applying it, the same principle that allows us to pick up multiple cards like that can be used. So I push this down, that picks up and it's actually stuck. It's actually, vacuumed on there. But if I just do this, it looks like it's stuck, but it's not actually, because it's just being picked up with the same sort of surface tension down here. So because of that, you can use that in ways where it looks like this is actually permanently on the card, but in actuality, you just move it over here, and now I can stick other cards underneath here. I can, in sort of a card and a drink type thing. You could also then actually vanish this very, very easily, reproduce it. So if you come over here, you steal this, it would be very easy to steal because it doesn't actually stick. Steal it, come over here, and then produce it, and then go, oh, I'm sorry, it's supposed to be down here. That kind of thing. You can play with that.
How about this idea? Let me grab me another card.
Got it.
Let's say if we have this on a double, so let's say we're in this position and we got the static thing going, to actually have it be for like a miracle change, to be able to. It's almost as a convincer that it never left the card.
Card identity. It's without sounding like
The worst miracle change ever. by the way.
amazing. Without sounding like a certain person we both know. I honestly was going to get to that. And
Okay, so as a convincer,
Yes.
that it's the same card.
and then also the fact that the principle itself, as opposed to using it as an effect, you use it as a method.
Cool.
So let's try to do this with cards that actually are a little more contrasting. There you go. And using a little more, using basically sort of all the snap, crackle, and pop double lifty type moves, Pat Page's move and some of the other stuff like this. Now I can pick up the double.
Nice.
Yeah, sure.
Now I've just picked up the double, and now here's the double to then go into the miracle change or whatever else that I'm going to go into from that
Wow.
point. Or if a miracle change sounds a little too movie for you,
Right on top of
right on top of the deck. So this is the double, the Pat Page type thing. You pick this up and you go, now watch, and it changes. So the same thing, you can do it without having to actually.
Beautiful.
So you use it as a method. And then a couple other things. This is when I was first playing around with this 2 years ago, and I started showing this to magicians. I showed it to my friend Derek Delgadio, who's kind of a genius. He is a genius. And he suggested a kind of a funny bit, which I thought was awesome, where you say, look, this is how we learn how to palm. Right? And then from this, you can actually very, very easily use your thumb to pop that over so that this lodges it, see? And then from this point, basically do the rub-a-dub vanish as though it gets sucked up into the plunger.
And with a little tiny card being crumbled up in there.
Yeah, you could do something like that, or you could also use it for any sort of those, the plunger itself could be used as, would you be impressed if this, if this card was, and then you actually have the little miniature card inside the plunger. So that would work too. But yeah, Derek's thing actually looks pretty smart, pretty cool. You get that gag. This is how we learn how the bomb, and then that. And then also, I do magnetic cards. I use the Plants gimmick. It's a really great thing. And sometimes when I do that routine, then later on in the show, I'll have this, and I go, you want to see how I did the thing earlier? This. And then that leads right into, after the magnetic sort of all the cards sticking to me, why I'm going to be doing that. So there's actually kind of a couple of things that I think are pretty cool with that. Oh, and then also, Chad Long has a great thing with a dart gun, which is awesome. It's a suction cup dart gun. You can pretty much do Chad's routine with this. Maybe you change the handling just a little bit, but I'll let you look up Chad's routine. It's great. But also I was playing with the idea that if you had duplicates, so a red one here, and this would be hidden underneath, and this would be the chosen card or something, and then you actually sort of do one of these things where you, let go, that kind of vanish, and as you do that, you let it go, and then pop it off to the other one. So it's just basically just, slip cutting, not slip cutting, just cutting, cutting this over and going bonk. To show the card so it actually lands on it. It's kind of a fun
So
bit.
it's like the Chad Long thing, but more magical, where it's like it disappears and reappears in the location.
Exactly, and this would be a different thing than other Chads, because Chad is actually you're really genuinely on it.
Yeah.
And then the other idea that you had, which I thought was great, this is from last night. Explain this. This was awesome.
Yeah, to actually make.
First, let's say about that the full deck. So I show you the full deck, and you said to me that we can glue it to just one card because it was Solid Deception.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now this is a great thing as well. But for the Chad Long thing, this came first. But here, if you have a plunger that is super glued onto one card, that could be a selection. You'd force a duplicate card, and then
You know, the only thing I would change about this is that I would actually glue it in a position where
Yeah.
it looks like that.
Yeah.
so
Stuck.
it looks,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so it actually looks like it's solid down.
very cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is just one of the prototypes.
Yeah.
That's nice.
But no, I was just saying, but go on, please.
The so here you would have this, just like yours with the card on the bottom. It's reversed though, so you can have the card selected and things like that. Then you take the plunger and the deck. You could put this up and then toss, or you toss the plunger up with the deck, and basically you'd mime tossing at the same time you toss the cards up. And the plunger being small enough can be thumb palmed or hidden in a way. But it's like the same routine as you had, but instead of a two-step thing, where you vanish it and then it's here. This is a lot more messy.
Yeah.
And so it's a great finale where the plunger can't do anything else because the cards are no longer in play.
And you can give them at the end. It's a cool
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's something to keep that is
Yeah, because
really magical.
it's going to be glued on there anyway.
It's an
you might as well.
impossible object.
Exactly.
They,
So-
they love it.
But what gave us this idea was actually this, which is another brilliant idea. This was Matthew. You put this together. This is the solid deception. And because of the concept of air pressure and sucking and, the audience doesn't know about surface tension, but that's what's actually happening here is static surface tension. But here you have this finale that just leaves it so obscure, and I do like John's idea about making it look like it's
stuck.
in a
Yeah, sure.
stuck
Yeah.
position. Like, that's
Yeah.
more what it would look like.
You would have to do that. Yeah. Sure.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I was thinking about after you showed this to me is that wouldn't it be awesome? And I have no idea exactly how this would work. So maybe somebody will come up with this idea. But wouldn't it be awesome is if you have this and it's like this, and you go and you're holding for a very long time, and then suddenly half of it drops, and then that's the chosen card.
And
Do you see what I'm saying?
Remains, yeah.
Like you can like this, and then whether you release the valve or something, and then this pops down, and then you're able to actually pop out the card.
Now, is it possible just to do, I mean, if you have the static principle, let's say we don't glue the whole deck together. Let's say we just glue a half deck. And then you would have this. Will that lift up at that
You
point?
should combine with the gimmick plunger.
Yeah, if you combine it with the
Because
gimmick plunger, then
you gimmick plunger, your gimmick plunger, so you make the vacuum, everything comes, and when you release the pressure, the same way the gimmick plunger will work.
So for anyone that wants that effect,
You can release the pressure and
contact Matthew.
it will
and
drop, and that's
We'll
it.
have to get it specially made for you. That
Yeah,
sounds,
we could do
that
that.
sounds a little more complicated.
yeah,
but we could
sounds-
do it.
But I just think that would look awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the solid deck, what I think is interesting is that how you got to that. What made you think that? What was the
My thing is I never worked on the plunger, so I just got into that project because I was doing my pen 10 years ago. So when I got to work on the plunger, I said to myself, I should maybe think about what I could do because it will be really different to what you do. That's the cool part.
And it really is, and I have to, say that I appreciate that something that you totally dismissed at first as being something that, because you wanted that I can do it, you can't. That you were able to turn that off and say, well, let's analyze this and let's take a look at it further. So that's really,
Yeah, I
really
don't
great.
I don't do always a challenge thing, but at the time I created that trick in '98, it was definitely the kind of presentation I like. Because I was younger, and when you're a younger magician, you want to do something that other can't do. So that was at that time. When I came back on that project, I started working on the plunger. So my first idea was the suck no suck plunger. So first, can I make a gimmick plunger that could suck or no suck? And I end up with the gimmick one. After, I try to see what I could do different and because I worked on Solid Deception with you, it came to my mind. So that was the second step. And after I came back on the suck no suck plunger and try to figure out reverse.
And just because we haven't talked about it here yet, the plunger you're referring to is the one with the holes
Yeah,
in it
with
that,
the holes.
that allows you to pick up cards or not
Yeah.
pick up cards depending on how you block those
Yeah.
holes.
And after that I came back I came back on the cards trying to figure out a way to do the same thing with as the gimmick plunger, but not gimmicking the plunger but gimmicking the cards. So I end up, and that was the last thing I found, making the cards that will give you kind of the same possibilities that with the gimmick plunger, but just using one special, very special card.
Yeah, and that was my what became my favorite way of attacking this problem. Is I love the gimmick plunger, and I love using the plunger, and I like the non-challenging aspects of your style. But the thing that this actually achieves a double duty. It becomes the breather
Right.
that can cut to the card, and yet if you put it in the right position, can be something that does not pick up even with a standard plunger.
And I think
That you do
No.
want to stick to like a rule of three.
They should trial. They should try
definitely play with
to
them all.
in front
Yeah,
of different
definitely.
audience and feel what they feel comfortable. Maybe they want to keep the power, maybe not. Maybe they want to use the pen. Maybe they want to have a gimmick plunger,
Yep.
and take what that fit to their personality.
Yep.
Excuse my French. And now, because what fits to me 10 years ago, challenging, is not too much what I'm doing now. So also they can come back after a couple of years on the same stuff and maybe change a little their path.
As you grow, this is something that can grow with you.
Yeah, and realize that if you're using this as a trick, you can't use it as a method anymore. You know, like
is
if you're
true,
going to use it as a method, use it as a method. If you're going to use it as an effect,
you gotta
use
be
it as an
smart.
effect.
You got to
Yeah.
make sure they don't cancel each other
I
out.
see a lot of like method as effect and effect as method, and that's a bad thing in my opinion.
Wonderful. So the history of this effect is actually quite interesting. As you can see, we took more than one person to put this together, and the original effect is based. I mean, the principle is based on the static surface tension, static with more than one card.
Vacuum.
Yeah, vacuum. Yeah.
Is it a vacuum?
It's not really not a vacuum. It's actually surface tension with a tad amount of static electricity, which is actually, depending on where you are in the world, that is actually going to help or hurt you. I've noticed, like you do this in Florida, humidity-wise, it could kill you. Depending on how strong the crimp is or how bad the humidity is that day, things like that. I mean, these are all things to take into
definitely
consideration.
test it out
Test
before
it out
you.
beforehand. But if you don't count magnetic cards, because the idea of the card just sticking or clinging, which is more of an effect, not the method. But the method, the first time any of that, we think at least appears in print is in Apocalypse, which was the more long thing. Which he would put his hand down like this and then lift up, and then the cards would actually stick, and it was multiple cards. But you couldn't do like in a whole deck or anything
No.
like that because of the way that you were doing this. And depending on how clammy you are, you really could or could not pick up. And if I remember the description correctly, he was using it as a almost impromptu magnetic cards. It was very closer to that old effect. You know, you see the illustration of that in old magic books, than say picking up to a certain number or picking up any of that kind of stuff. So then we go to Matthew, who now, did you know about that trick before you started
No,
this?
same as you. I didn't know about that trick. I
Right.
made the research after and figured out Apocalypse in 1980, the Marv Long effect. Mine, I came up with that trick playing with my toys and my pen. I was playing with my card and just grab a pen and did that. I place those objects like that and say, oh, maybe I can lift one card. So I just took the first thing that was on my desk, and it was a blue deck. So I did that. and I said, "Ooh, maybe I can lift the second one," because I knew about the vacuum principles, because we use it in double lift when we want to throw and flourish double lift, because at that time I was doing that kind of stuff. I knew, and I immediately tried it, and so it worked. So my trick was basically lifting cards and cards and cards. And I didn't have any routine with that, just I was able to lift up to a full deck, if the deck was clean. And when I showed that to Gaëtan Bloom, a magician, a French magician, Gaëtan Bloom, he told me for the audience to enjoy that, because I was performing that for magician only. He said, you need to have a card selected and figure out a way to make hair. So he gave me the old idea using salt. You know, when you hit and it spreads, and I just made a crimp, and it became the trick we saw before.
Right. And the way I started playing with it is you guys told me. So that's pretty much what happened there.
Well, as I mentioned before, like I saw the plunger, and to me, I've always wanted to do the guess your weight routines, with the set this Bob King as well, and probably the other sort of more modern routine that has a lot is Pitt Harling's thing with the flick.
Yes.
Right. Using a breather. And to me, I've never been able to find a way that was me to do that, because it was either involving very all this sort of heavy gambling things. Look, I have the ability. Look, I can do this, and I can cut exactly the number of cards, that kind of thing. And or, you know, in a Pitt's routine, you're showing this an amazing ability that one finger has, right? And it's not where I really wanted to go. So it wasn't until I saw this thing and started playing with essentially using Pitt's routine and the Bob King thing as a basis. That's where I started playing with it. Just I went the opposite. I didn't add. Wasn't suggested going right to the chosen card. I went right to the chosen card, and started playing with the guess your weight type routines using this, realizing that the cards are sticking together. Then I started playing with it and realizing I can do it just on its own. And then it was actually Tom Stone, who was visiting the Magic Castle at the time, and said, "You know about Beach's thing about this, right?" And I said, "You know, you're right. I think I do remember seeing Beach had this thing about this." And then we got in contact, and that's where it all came from. But and then all the other ideas, like I've mentioned, anyone who I kind of talked to about this or whatever, you know, I've credited whoever told me. Paul Wilson also mentioned a thing where you could, by putting your finger here really quickly, you could, you know, make sure that you can show, look, it doesn't stick. But then if you want them to stick, you rev up the plunger, and then it sticks. And so that is another person who's, you know, kind of led me down that path. And yeah, that's pretty much that.
It really goes to show how, you know, I mean, this concept, these principles, a lot of people are really interested in this. I mean, this is really a fun thing to do, and I'm excited to be able to be one of the first to play with this, and I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy this. The tiny plunger, you know, talk about standing on the shoulders of giants. I mean, how many names we had? You know,
Oof.
Tom Stone, Bob King, Pitt
Marv Long, Gaëtan Bloom.
Gaëtan Bloom. You know, and I'm sure there's others.
Paul Harris.
Yeah,
Paul Harris.
Paul Harris. I mean, everything. And now John Armstrong and Matthew Beach.
And Garrett
So
Thomas.
I'm along for the ride.